On a frigid winter evening, a fierce wind howled through the tall pines encircling a small cabin nestled deep in the Canadian Rockies. Marcus, a solitary forest ranger on a much-needed week-long retreat, was savoring a steaming cup of coffee while engrossed in the final chapters of his favorite novel. The crackling fireplace offered a comforting warmth, and the aroma of pine wood smoke permeated the air. Outside, the weather forecast had warned of an overnight snowstorm, and the gusts rattling the window panes indicated that the storm had already begun. The world beyond the cabin was rapidly disappearing behind a swirling curtain of snow. Stretching to relieve the tension in his back, Marcus was jolted from his peaceful solitude by a strange noise, faint yet distinct, almost like a cry carried through the icy air. Frowning in confusion, he carefully set his book aside and approached the window. The forest beyond was blending into the encroaching darkness of night, but Marcus noticed something unusual near the porch steps. Squinting through the falling snow, he caught a fleeting glimpse of an animal, its fur illuminated by the flickering porch light. Curious yet cautious, Marcus donned his thick jacket and gloves before stepping into the frigid night. The wind bit at his skin as he opened the door, met by the sharp sting of winter. There, near the porch steps, crouched a bobcat. Its fur, a mix of tawny gold and gray with dark markings, was matted in patches and appeared to be shivering uncontrollably. The creature locked eyes with Marcus, its amber gaze unwavering. For a long moment, neither moved. The silence between man and animal was thick with unspoken tension. Marcus had encountered bobcats during his ranger duties, but never this close, and certainly not one in such a vulnerable state. Its gaze was intense, almost pleading, and as it shifted slightly, Marcus noticed the animal's swollen belly. Was it injured? He hesitated. Could it be pregnant? The bobcat let out a low, almost mournful growl, and its paw stretched forward tentatively, as if it were silently asking for help. Marcus's instincts told him to be cautious, but another part of him, the part that understood the deep, quiet connection between man and nature, urged him to act with compassion. Against his better judgment, Marcus slowly opened the door wider and stepped back, giving the bobcat space to enter. To his surprise, the bobcat didn't hesitate. It padded inside with slow but purposeful movements, its muscles weary but deliberate. As it passed him, Marcus closed the door behind it, sealing out the storm. The bobcat quickly sought the warmth of the fire, curling up on the rug, its body contrasting with the cozy cabin. The firelight danced over its fur, revealing the tension in its muscles as it lay still, except for the slow rise and fall of its chest. Marcus wondered what had driven this wild creature to him in such a vulnerable state: hunger, desperation, or a need for safety. Thinking the bobcat might be hungry, he rummaged through his kitchen and found a piece of cooked chicken, placing it near the animal. The bobcat sniffed the air but ignored the food, focusing instead on the warmth of the fire. Marcus sat at the far end of the room, watching it closely. The bobcat occasionally glanced at him, its amber eyes flickering in the firelight, appearing oddly calm yet still tense, caught between wariness and a strange trust in him. As the hours passed, the storm outside intensified, snow piling up against the windows and muffling the world beyond. Marcus tended to the fire, ensuring the room stayed warm as the hearth crackled steadily. The bobcat remained near the fire, its breathing shallow but steady, as though it had found a temporary sense of security. When morning came, Marcus awoke to a soft, rhythmic sound, a low purring. It took a moment for him to realize that the bobcat was the source of the sound. Now lying on its side, Marcus noticed that the bobcat looked even rounder than the night before. His suspicion from earlier was confirmed. The bobcat was pregnant. Concerned about the well-being of the animal, Marcus tried reaching out to his ranger contacts via his emergency radio, but the storm had knocked out the signal. He was on his own, left to rely on his instincts and knowledge. If the bobcat went into labor, Marcus would need to ensure she had a safe and comfortable environment. As the day passed, Marcus stayed busy clearing the snow from the cabin's entrance and stocking up on firewood. Meanwhile, the bobcat found a corner of the room to claim as her own. She seemed to be resting, perhaps preparing for what was to come. Wanting to help, Marcus laid an old blanket nearby. Though the bobcat regarded him warily at first, she eventually settled on it, curling up into a tight ball. That evening, as the storm began to ease, the cabin was filled with the sound of tiny, high-pitched cries. Marcus watched in amazement as the bobcat gave birth to 3 small cubs. Their fur was damp, and their eyes were tightly shut, but their mewing voices filled the room with a sense of life and new beginnings. The mother bobcat, her instincts kicking in, carefully cleaned each cub and nudged them closer for warmth. Marcus stood back, quietly observing the scene. He felt a surprising rush of emotion watching this wild creature, vulnerable yet fierce, trust him enough to share this intimate moment of her life. For the next few days, Marcus adjusted to his new, unusual housemates. Nala, as he had started calling the bobcat, remained cautious, but she allowed Marcus to bring her food and water. At first, she refused most of it, but slowly, as she regained her strength, she began eating small portions. Her cubs grew quickly, their tiny bodies becoming more robust with each passing day. Marcus made an effort to document the experience, carefully snapping a few photos of the bobcat and her cubs from a respectful distance. He reached out to his ranger contacts once the storm had cleared, but no one had reported a missing or injured bobcat. Wildlife experts advised him to release the family back into the wild when they were ready, but Marcus found himself torn. Could he bring himself to part with them after everything they had been through together? Weeks turned into months, and Marcus's quiet cabin was no longer the same. The once peaceful, solitary space now echoed with the playful sounds of the cubs as they tumbled over each other, exploring every nook and cranny of the cabin. The mother bobcat, Nala, had become a steadfast companion. Though she remained wild at heart, Marcus could sense that she appreciated the safety and warmth of her temporary home. Marcus made sure the cubs kept their natural instincts. He built a small outdoor area where they could climb, play, and practice hunting, developing the skills they would need to survive in the wild. Every evening, without fail, Nala and her cubs would come back to the warmth of the cabin, curling up by the fire as if it were their home. As the seasons changed and the snow began to melt, Marcus knew it was time for Nala and her cubs to return to the wild. He didn't want to think about it, but he knew it was for the best. On a clear spring morning, he opened the enclosure, allowing them to leave whenever they were ready. Nala was the first to step out, moving gracefully. She paused and looked back at Marcus, her amber eyes meeting his for a long moment. Then, with a flick of her tail, she led her cubs into the forest, disappearing among the trees. Marcus stood at the doorway, watching them go, a bittersweet smile on his lips. The cabin felt empty without them, but the memories of their time together would stay with him forever. The wilderness had given him an unexpected gift, a reminder of the delicate balance between humans and nature, a bond formed on a cold winter night and cherished always. What are your thoughts on this amazing story? Feel free to share your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more captivating tales like this one. Thank you.